Hey everybody, this is Perch back in the US. A lot of thoughts there. Not thoughts for this channel. I mean, unless you guys would like me to start talking about things that aren't really comics related. But then I get a bunch of jackasses in the comments like, you're talking about politics now. And it's like, I don't know, but there's just some general observations I get. Maybe every now and then. I don't know, whatever. Um, but I back in the US, I caught up last night with a friend of mine who's a writer. And I know he posts in the comments from time to time, so I'll let him identify himself if he wants to. But we were, no, not Sean Murphy. But we were kind of, the conversation quickly settled on this question, which was, I don't know, he had seen some videos that were picking apart that Kelly Sue DeConnick interview I think it was on Sci-Fi several years ago, where she said, if you don't like my comics, if you don't like my comics, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my books, whatever. If you don't like me or whatever I'm doing, don't buy my books. Problem solved, she said.
And if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. Problem solved.
And he was talking about it because this had come up with a bunch of other, some of his peers, other comic writers, about all the, the jerks, basically, the jerk comic fans who were picking apart that discussion, and he pointed to his video where they were recently talking about it. There's been lots of videos made about that statement. I've used it as a joke from time to time. But in our conversation, his question was, why? But why is that bad advice? Like, why is that? It's not wrong. It's actually correct. And just for the record, what we both agreed on very quickly is the way she said it, the sarcastic. It was very snotty. It was very condescending. It was not just a, hey, if you don't like my books, then go buy some other comics, or if you don't like my books, don't buy my books. It was, don't buy my books. Problem solved. It was said in a very demeaning. If you were in person and somebody talked, directly to you in real life, you would think, "Wow, that person is a jackass." But forgetting about the interface, forgetting about the way it was said, that advice is good advice. It's advice I've given, many times, and I say it not to protect, the creator or the publisher, but to protect you, the consumer, from your wallet, from money going out of it for things you don't want. A lot of life gets better if you cut out the things you don't like. I don't understand the mentality. I understand why people do it, but I don't understand people who have this mentality of, but if I quit buying, then it's giving up, and then they've won. That's weird. You're paying for this service. It's a very strange way to go about your life. And then the natural next step of that, and I think this is something that kind of just occurs as you get older, but time is valuable. That the expression time is money. So even if you're not paying for it, like even if you're going to a pirate site and you're reading comics that way, if you hate the comic, you hate the writer, you hate everybody involved, but you're still, every week reading the comics. There's a guy who writes me regularly, and we kind of chat back and forth, and he goes and he downloads, from Nemesis every week, all the comics. He's stealing them, and he hates them. He's like, I hate 90% of what I read. I read all these comics. I hate 90% of them. It's been going on for a year. And I've asked him, like, but why are you reading them? I mean, if you hate them, why? It's like, wow, I've sunk so much time into these characters. I'm not going to stop now. Like, but try to stop. try, because that sounds miserable that you're spending that much time. He's like, well, I'm not paying for it, so it's not taking anything away from me, except it's taking away your time. It's taking away a lot of your time. And your time is actually valuable. You learn to become very jealous, very protective of your time, because it just is not. You can't, if you are, even if you're not paying for it, if you're spending lots of time every day reading and doing something that you intrinsically hate, It's bad. And I just, again, I think there's a group of people out there who are, very hardcore into outrage is the brand. For some, outrage is the money. And if that's your brand, if that's your money, then yeah, you're going to push back. I do get people who push back, like you say, we shouldn't care about this kind of stuff, but that's letting them win. It's like I can't help but notice that you have a very healthy, profitable YouTube business based on people hating this stuff. And if everybody just said, you know what, truly I am done, I'm not buying anymore, I give up, I'm out. That's going to hurt your wallet. You're as much of a grifter in this as Marvel is. I'm sorry, it's true. And I'm just saying what's true. But one of the biggest cons, and this is a conversation I was having with the writer, one of the most destructive kind of, grifts or cons that I think has occurred is what, in some cases, Facebook, Twitter, and social media has done to us, which is to say, they've built products that make you feel like you have to be invested in the fight. You have to argue. If you don't argue, you're somehow a coward. They encourage this. You look at all the stuff that gets pulled and all the accounts that get banned off of Twitter and everything else. But you know what never gets banned off of these sites? It's when people call each other, when people try and walk away from an argument and somebody's like, oh, you're a coward, you're walking away, you don't have an argument. Twitter never gets involved in that, ever. They want you to argue forever. So does Facebook. They are happy. They don't. You could be Republican, Democrat, you could be anti-vax, whatever it happens to be. If your method of arguing is to perpetuate the conversation, they are going to keep that alive forever. It is why I will tell you the toughest part of Twitter banning Trump, the thing that why they kept him, they clearly didn't want him on that platform, but they kept around for a long time, and I guarantee you they held their nose when they finally booted him off. Not because they believed in free speech, but because Trump brought a ton of views to that site. He brought a ton of arguments to that site. I guarantee you there was a conversation that happened within Twitter to say, if we remove Trump, are we sure that people are going to continue to argue and make fun of him and everything else? And that was probably a hard decision for them. It had nothing to do with freedom of speech. It was all about engagement. And one of the things when I came back into the U.S., I'm scrolling through Twitter because I had a long wait, and I'm looking at various things, and I saw a number of arguments, and one of the peculiar ones I'll just throw out there, and I'm not segueing into a completely different thing, and I understand I'm opening up a rabbit's or hornet's nest when I talk about this. Is I come across a bunch of tweets around this Disney, or sorry, not Disney. There's a Florida bill. I haven't read the bill, so I'm not going to comment on the bill because I haven't read it. I honestly have no idea what's in there. But there's a lot of debate about it. Is it anti-gay or is it pro-gay? It's about what you. From what I can ascertain from tweets, it has something to do with whether you're going to introduce LGBTQ topics in school at certain ages. And I'm probably completely wrong in even that short summary. Again, to be clear, I haven't read it. So I don't know if I'm for this bill or against it or don't care. I don't know. But in it, I see that there's another YouTube guy, just some guy, is commenting on it. And then he's getting in a fight with the lawyer guy, who's another YouTube personality. I'm doing a just bang up job of identifying all these people. In my head, and bear in mind, I take no shame about it. There's the just some guy who has kind of a superhero mask in his avatar. There is the Comics Matter guy, which is Zach, and he's got a Moon Knight kind of thing going on in his. I think it's Moon Knight in that avatar. I may be wrong about that. And then you've got the lawyer guy, and you've got the frog guy, and you've got the guy who's a silhouette, who's a drinker, I think. And then anyway, this is how I identify all these people. I'm putting my cards on the table. I don't pay attention to any of this crap. So everybody's kind of vaguely an avatar, and that's where it comes. But anyway, just some guys arguing with the lawyer guy, and from what I can tell from the tweets, just some guy has run afoul of his core fan base. Meaning the people who normally follow him are pissed at whatever his take is. And what I find peculiar, and this was, again, not knowing any of the bill and the takeaway and his position, why it was unpopular, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What I found interesting about it was that in the people talking, basically replying to just some guy, everybody's telling him this is a bad take. Take the L's. You're wrong. I'm unsubscribing from you. You are wrong. You are wrong. People getting very obsessed with that. And so I think about the same issue. If people don't like his take, why are they running in to tell him he has a bad take? Why don't they you know, just unclick, mute? Wouldn't that be easier? Like, why get involved in that fight in the first place? Why not just leave? And then on top of that, a bunch of the people are in there and they start calling just some guy a groomer. Now, I don't know what that has to do with this bill. I don't know how we got into that. But I find that peculiar because one of the areas that a lot of people have supported just some guy on is when he talks about how casually calling people names, like, when creators casually call people Nazis, that's a lousy, bad thing. It devalues the word Nazi and it's a bad behavior. And lots of people agree with that take. I'll see, just some guy can put that out there and get, I don't know, thousands of likes. Plenty of people come in on that. Yet when they disagree with just some guy on something, he immediately gets labeled a groomer, which is a pretty foul thing to say. I mean that is if again, I don't know if maybe the context they're using is different from what other people call it, but that's basically calling somebody a pedophile. Um, that seems pretty extreme. So how crazy is it that, when faced with something people disagree with, rather than just say, you know what, I'm not going to participate, I'm out. I don't agree, I'm out. Why they immediately go to throwing these names around, calling him this stuff. Um, when previously they agreed with this take that calling people names like this was wrong and, offensive. Again, what gives, right? And it got me thinking, and it goes along with this conversation of this writer. Why is it so hard for people to just say, I'm out, to simply say, I'm not going to buy the book? Why do they keep going in? And on top of that, um, why take it to a personal level when you disagree with somebody's take? Look, I don't like, what's a comic I did not enjoy? I did not enjoy X-Men Green. I thought it was a pretty awful comic with an awful message. I felt like it was funny. Somebody came into the comments a couple weeks ago saying, Perch defends X-Men Green. Like, what are you, high? I, I had one of the most extreme direct videos against that book of certainly on this channel. It was an awful book with an awful message. Perch defends this stuff. Get over yourself. But I thought that book was awful. I thought the book was, absolutely had a bad message. Absolutely, I don't want to say wrecked characters, but it was bad. It was probably the darkest stain on this current X-Men era in terms of what it was conveying. I believe that's written by Jerry Duggan. I think he wrote that story. I don't think Jerry Duggan is an awful person. I don't think he's. I think he told an awful story. I think he's probably a very charming guy. In fact, I know he's a charming guy. If I saw Jerry Duggan, I would have a beer with him because I don't believe Jerry Duggan is, I don't think telling a bad story, telling a story that I find very offensive, means that I have to immediately call Jerry Duggan the most extreme things in the world. I think that's weird. I think that's very weird to be able to go to take it down to that level. It's very, very strange. And I'm consistent on this part. I think that if a comic creator, or let's as an editor, okay, Heather Antos comes out and some guys don't like her book and she calls him a misogynist and a Nazi. That's wrong. Somebody can not like your book and that doesn't make them the most extreme word you can think of in your mouth. I thought we all agreed on this, right? Grown-ups, grown adults do not do this to each other. People who are mentally sufficient, people who are comfortable with who they are, They do not run around calling people groomers and Nazis and all these kinds of things because they disagree with your opinion. That's absurd. It doesn't grow comment. It doesn't make you could take it from any argument. Socially, it's wrong. Financially, it's wrong. You're taking money out of your pocket. We can talk about this from a capitalist perspective. We can talk about it from a freedom of speech, liberal, however you want to do it. It's wrong. This is goofy behavior, and this is the behavior that generally you expect children to work themselves out of when they grow up. That's why they have lessons in first and second grade around name calling and why it's wrong. Some people need to go back to that age and take that lesson over again. But I've swirled a bunch of topics here together. The key thing is, look, Kelly Sue's comment: if you don't like my book or don't like my politics, don't buy my books. Again, aside from a terrible delivery and a very kind of snotty, nasty way of communicating it, it's the right advice. I am at the point at this stage, catching up on comics, where Tom King writing characters is not something I want to participate in. I don't want to read it. I love Greg Smallwood. I think he is a great artist. This Human Target book is with his latest issue with Guy Gardner and Ice and what he's doing there. I find offensive. It's awful. I'm out. I don't need to see Tom King's deconstruction take on characters anymore. I have no desire to see any more of it. Not for multiple reasons. Not just because it's the same trick every single time. It's the same game every one. But also, it's just it's like I don't know. I'm not a masochist. I don't want to see it anymore. So I'm not going to buy it. I'm out. At some point, somebody can come to me and say, no, he's done something really unique and original here, and I will say, all right, I'll give it a try. But on the whole, I'm out. I think the only kind of madness would be if I, felt internally when I read this, it's awful, and I'm like, I'm gonna keep breeding it anyway, because goddamn it, I want to feel that hatred. That would be crazy. Now, all that said, if I see Tom King at a convention, I'm not going to walk up to him saying, I'm not buying your books anymore, you asshole. If I was next to him at a bar, I would buy him a drink, because I buy everybody a drink. Actually, I might not buy him a drink. He doesn't need. God, can you imagine what a depressed, drunk Tom King would be like? Jesus, mess. Anyway, sorry. I'm joking. I'm joking. I don't have any ill will toward the guy, and I don't care if the guy has ill will toward me. From what I can gather, I think he does have ill will toward me. But that's his problem. It doesn't have to be mine. I don't know. It's again, I think as we look, if we look back at this time period, decades from now, one of the biggest things that I think will be revealed is we allowed kind of tech companies to build algorithms to allow them to profit off of getting all of us to hate each other, and that's I think a lot of people will say, why did we let that happen? Now, probably somebody should get on that. Anyway, thanks for listening to my little rambling nonsense, and hope you're doing well. Take care of yourselves.